Hello everybody. This cybersecurity event is made possible by the New South Wales Government Business Connect program. The Business Connect program is a dedicated and personalised New South Wales Government program. It provides advice, events and resources to help you start, run, adapt or grow your business. Business Connect advisors are independent professionals. They have experience in running their own businesses, have qualifications in business and are able to advise people from an experience-backed perspective. To register for the Business Connect program, please call 1300 134 359 and you'll find someone in Service New South Wales who will guide you to your most appropriate business advisor in your community. Now this evening, what we're attempting to do is to provide some actionable steps and some practical insights about what you can do to protect your business and make it more cyber secure. Before we commence, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we meet on today, the Awabakal people, and I'd like to acknowledge the country and landscapes of the traditional owners that we as an organisation travel through, rest upon and visit in our work. We also pay our respects to the knowledge and guidance of elders past, present and emerging, and value their understanding and the thousands of years for which they have cared for, protected and learned from this land. We thank them for this and value their wisdom and guidance, and we look forward to reaching out to local regional elders to seek out how we can support each of these communities that we work with. To our panel, and I'd firstly like to introduce Dr. Alana Maurushat, who is a Professor of Cybersecurity and Behaviour at Western Sydney University, where she holds a joint position in the School of Computers, Data and Mathematical Sciences. Alana is the Associate Dean International in the SCDMS and is key researcher with the CRC Smart Satellites. She's currently researching on payment diversion fraud, ransomware, cyber reputation risk management, tracking money laundering through Bitcoin blenders, and distributed extreme edge computing for micro-clustered satellites and ethical hacking. She's a specialist advisor for the cybercrime investigation company IFW, Global and Cybertrace, and she lectures and researches in cybersecurity, privacy and security by design. Alana has done media with 60 Minutes, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Insight, ABC, 7:30 Report, and is author of many books and articles. Thank you, Alana, for being with us. Next, I'd like to introduce Hector Lucenti, founder of The Beach Geek, which is an information technology company. He's a guru that offers to people from his own business ground-up support, and he's done all of that in building this business over 4 years. He lives in Tuncurry and has been in the industry since the early 90s. He's worked in various roles around the world, from tech support to technology and an infrastructure manager, project manager and system and process designer. Information security is always on his radar, and he's very passionate about making sure small businesses and the small business community understand how a security breach can impact any business and how to implement countermeasures to mitigate these risks. Next, I'd like to introduce Leo Magnasalis, who is the owner and operator of Magtech IT, a small IT support business operating out of the Newcastle and Lake Macquarie region. Leo has worked in the customer support industry for more than 30 years, starting life as a photocopier technician before moving into the IT industry and working for large organisations such as Insurance Group Australia, Peabody Energy, and as IT manager for Husqvarna Australia and New Zealand. He has a passion for helping small businesses, and Leo is very well endowed to help us with regards to how we can help regional small businesses have a much more secure posture with regards to how they operate. So, how are we going to do this panel session? We're going to look at it in a few segments. The first segment is to look at your cybersecurity posture. And can we measure this? Can we get a sense of where we're at and where we could be, how we can improve our cybersecurity posture? The next segment we'd like to talk to is cybersecurity culture, and can we do anything within our business to make our business one that is much more robust in its approach and how it tackles cybersecurity threats. And the last segment that we'll look at is, what is our cybersecurity strategy? Who is responsible for it? And what sort of information do we need to look for our particular business, for our profile? So let's get started. We'll start off with you, Hector. So awareness of cybersecurity and cybersecurity culture in a business. What's been your experience with all the businesses you've worked with? with regards to that posture piece and getting it right at the beginning. What sort of posture do people need to take, and what have you learnt from working with small businesses?
Yeah, thanks for having us today, Steve. Look, the posture we've seen is one of non-awareness, and it's that one that concerns us a lot, because it's yeah, that'll never happen to me. That only happens to the big players. You know, that only happens to the big banks. Yeah. You know, I've just got my small shoe shop here. Who would want to, you know, cyber attack my thing? And that's the incorrect posture you would have to have against.
So what are you really seeing out there? People are taking that. What are you witnessing? What are you seeing?
Very lightly, because they don't have a protocol for response. They don't have a protocol to mitigate. They haven't even thought about it. They haven't even had that conversation. So it's the percentage of businesses, small businesses that have this posture is, you know, overwhelming. Okay. So and that is a concern. So they're not prepared.
Let's reflect on that before I pass on to Alana with regards to your cyber posture. But if we look at some of the data that's coming to us from threat reports from the government, it's talking about in the financial year 20 to 21 there were 67,500 cybercrime reports. That's an average of 1 every 8 minutes, representing an increase of 13% from the previous financial year. Cyber criminals continue to steal significant amounts of money, impersonating trusted suppliers and compromising people often through emails. The average loss that I can understand we have in Australia is $50,600, which is 1.5 times higher than last year. Ransomware is the most serious, and there are almost 500 ransomware-related cybercrimes in 2021 financial year, which is up 15%. So what we're hearing here, what we're seeing here is typically a small business, according to cyber crime report, their average loss when they are attacked is $9,000 for a small business, and for a medium-sized business, it's $33,000. And there are 12,000 of those incidents happen in New South Wales, which is 18% up on last year. So what you've described is well and truly borne out by the data. Alana, what are your thoughts about cyber posture and what small businesses can do to adopt a posture?
Yeah, look, so the first thing I want to say is I have a free cybersecurity aid center that I run. That's actually my core mission, and it's called MyCaseorg, MYCACE.org. And the mission is literally for anyone to call in if they have a cybersecurity question or they need help with any sort of an attack, and we will give them free information, okay, with regards to next steps. So what we're seeing with the center, and I investigate crime with a couple of companies as a special advisor, is it's actually out of control. So something everybody will be aware of are the types of scams that you're receiving on your phone at the moment. Right? Those are really highly visible for people, but what you don't see is the type of cybercrime occurring in ways that are invisible to you, that you can't see. And it's occurring just as prolifically as the scams you see and hear about. It's just that you're not able to actually see what's happening. And so for me, while the focus is on small business, and I would say that the cyber posture of many small businesses, because it's very scary when you start to think of something completely new, is about level 0 for most companies. It's not even level 1 if you were to have a scale out of 10. But the other reality is medium and large aren't all that much better in some cases. So it's not something to be embarrassed about if you're at level 0. The most important thing is that you think about, how do I go to those next steps to activate and just improve my posture a little bit.
Okay. Now, we might come back to that again, because you've shared before with us some really interesting insights, taking that a little bit further about what people can do. But Leo, just for you, if you could reflect on that first instance in segment 1 of our discussion about posture, and how can people have a better posture, and how can they perhaps even reflect on if they've improved or if it's denuded? What could they do?
Oh, look, I think what the other guys have said is people don't think they're big enough to have an issue. That's the number one thing. I think in IT we are really bad with acronyms and words. Yes. People don't think cybercrime. They think high level. Movies have got a lot to answer for in that case. So we have to change our terminology, I think, and how we speak to small business and what we say to them, and bring it down to a level that is understandable. And I think that will then create that posture and create that understanding where people will say, well, hey, I do need to do something about it because I now understand it. They don't understand it and they're afraid to say something because they don't want to sound dumb. People are afraid to sound silly or whatever. And when we say cybercrime and this, that and the other and all these fancy words and acronyms and whatever, it goes over people's heads. We need to really, as IT people, we need to bring it down to an understandable, plain English level.
Now, Alana, you sort of shared some, I guess, some war stories along the way in regard to how people can be susceptible, but at the same time, you're almost always very upfront about how easy it is to not be susceptible. Can you share perhaps some of the simple steps that people can take?
Well, the government's spent a lot of money developing all sorts of guidelines and toolkits for small business. Just literally go and access them. And so if you literally type Google, cybersecurity, small business, Australia, it'll all appear. And we've gone through those materials, and they actually don't assume a lot of knowledge, so they're written quite well, I think, for a lot of people. But the reality is, like, I'm working on crazy research, and I'm learning 50 acronyms a day still in cybersecurity. This industry loves their terminology, and they change the words here and there and everywhere. But at the end of the day, if you learn some of the basics about cybersecurity, it really is no different from learning some of the basics about how to secure your home, right? Or how you would secure your business if you locked up at night and you wouldn't leave your windows all open and your doors and everything. They're the same kind of things that you can do in cybersecurity that literally just sound different, but they're actually kind of the same thing in many ways. You're just unfamiliar with some of those steps.
So coming back then to you, Hector, where we started, can you perhaps share from your experience events or incidents where people have made themselves susceptible and how you've been able to assist them, and which could be something we could share through this panel discussion?
Absolutely. And, it's as, I think it can be as simple as not necessarily a cyber attack from a hacker somewhere that we don't know. It's as simple as having an internal employee leaving and deciding to copy all their files into a USB because they're taking them. Yeah. And that in itself, it compromises your business. And you could say that I would put in the cyber security bubble. So the fact that you don't have protocols to prevent that, that's a problem. So recently we've had a client where someone was leaving. We got advice that this person who holds a management level position is leaving in about 3 months. Okay, that's fine. And a week before they go, we still have not received any protocols on the customer queue. And then this employee goes, hey, I just want to have a chat. How can you help me extract all my emails so I can take them with me? So we flag that ticket and go, hang on a second. Manager, your person wants to extract all of these. Oh, really? What do we do? It's like, well, you need to find a protocol. You need to scope it out, and you need to tell us what can we aid what or what can we not aid with. And that simple right there, it's not an external factor. It's not someone who, like Leah says, these acronyms and people think, oh, somewhere in the cloud, in these other countries. No, it's right there at your doorstep. And that's the same as not locking your doors when you close shop. You know what I mean?
So it like we've sort of stated at the outset, it is behaviour. The best firewall is the behaviour of the people in your business. And some of these simple steps we can take.
Correct.
What about, Alana? What simply in terms of device security or network security, what simple things can people do that perhaps some organisations have got high risk, like banks, have already adopted quite quickly? What can we do quite simply with our own devices, or our own platforms, our own apps?
Well, just like a really old toothbrush or really old underwear with holes, you have to upgrade. It's literally that simple, okay? So you think it's really an expensive proposition for that software, whatever, but that's nothing compared to, right? $1,000 for a new piece of software is nothing compared to a $100,000 data breach, right? And so, like a lot of products you might think, well, it's old, it's still good, right? So sometimes we have things around our house, the older the better, we cherish it. Yeah, it's really not the same with software and hardware. In any way, shape, or form, because they're just not secure anymore, okay? And so it's kind of the equivalent if you're having some browsers, like almost all versions of Windows 10 and 11, and as of, I think it is October next year, Outlook 365 will no longer be supported. Now let me explain what that means. It literally means that the millions of lines of code that you don't see behind that piece of software will no longer be updated in order to prevent people from coming in through obvious loopholes. So it's like having a business where before, if you're running secure software, all your windows are shut at the end of the day, your doors are locked, your alarm's on, the Rolodex comes down, the computers are off, backed up. It's that no longer happens, but it doesn't tell you that's happening, but it's all open and ready for people to come in. And so there's really this reluctance to spend money on cybersecurity. You'd rather have something else, but it's really painful when you're hit. And people cry, and they want to fire people, and it's really stressful when a business, even if they lose $9,000 or $9 million, when they get hit, there's nothing pleasurable about it for that business.
Exactly.
Leo, we were talking just before we began the conversation, and if you're able to, you've mentioned you work with a lot of small business, sometimes sole traders or one-off operators. What sort of impacts have you seen, and how have you been able to assist people when they have been attacked?
Pretty much everything. One that we were talking about was a sole trader, single person, working in the finance industry. Pretty much he got his phone ported away to another carrier, and didn't think anything of it, just had SOS on the phone, thought, oh, Telstra's down. 4 or 5 hours later, something like about $150,000 worth of money taken from his accounts, and a $100,000 bill on his American Express card. So when we looked at that a little bit further, that wasn't necessarily cybercrime, as in he was hacked or anything. We worked out that his garbage was being gone through. So they've got his bank account details, they've got his name, address, phone number, created fake IDs, ported the number over, and watched him. So, there was little things like shredding your documents, shredding your bills.
I heard recently, and I shared it with our team, a small business owner, it was on the ABC, who banked with Bendigo Bank, and when my wife does the same with her business often, when she wants to go and do some business banking, she hasn't got it saved as a tab, so she'll do a quick search.
Yep.
And this lady did the same. She did a quick search on Bendigo Bank.
She clicked on an ad.
That she complained to Google.
Good luck.
To much effect. But the point was, she got what looked exactly like the landing page, and it behaved exactly like it would to log on with her password and her login, and it captured it, and she lost. Now, Bendigo Bank behaved in an exemplary way, but the point was the stress of that, as you said, Alana, created that impact. So what things can we do around our behaviour, and I'll come back to you, Alana, on this one, with regards to protecting accounts, protecting access? We've spoken about this before, but what simple steps can people put in place now on almost all points of access that they might have with the internet?
Yeah, look, we talk about tokens, two-factor authentication, SMS goes, and that all is great. But when you click on a link and you put your password and then you go, next, and next I should receive the code screen, and that's not happening, it's already too late. Yeah. So just read, just pay attention to what you're reading. And I know it's extremely hard, you Google something and it comes all these ads and searches, and they're very cunning. You just have to be really careful and, you know, instruct yourself. In my community, the community center runs free workshops. You know, for seniors, they can go in and they can learn the basics of typing on the internet and just making sure they read a link, how to bookmark a tab. So, you know, there must be something in your community. Just access it. The resources are there. So don't hesitate. But it's just sometimes very simple stuff.
Yeah. So who's controlling all of this, Alana? You've spoken before about...
No one.
Who's controlling?
What do you mean controlling? Like the criminals, the companies, the government? What do you mean by control?
Tell us more about that. This is a criminal enterprise.
Oh, man. So we've got stings about to happen in 3 countries at the moment, and it's organized crime.
Yeah.
There's like 1,000 people in an organization working in a building that looks like a legitimate tech company, and it's just set up to commit crime. It's so completely out of control, it's head-bent. But when you investigate and you go drill down a bit further, it might be located in one country, but if you follow the money, the communications, the people, it links up to some of the highest people in other countries that you might be shocked. Fully educated people, university educated, have had successful businesses and have turned to crime. Like it, literally, there's going to be 1 million Netflix series in the next 5 years and all the different things that are happening at present. In some countries, there's even buildings that, if translates to the university of fraud, it's literally on the outside of the building, and they put through, on average, 100 students per week, and they pay $1,000 US, and they exit with all cybercrime kits. So all different ways to commit scams, ransomware, business email compromise. They get the tutorials, and so it's not like just someone in a basement. It hasn't been that way for such a long time. And there are whole economies dependent on cybercrime for significant portions of their national income. It's really baffling the more you dig.
Okay, I want to talk to Leo. You'll start us off with this one. What can we do when we have been the victim? And I know each of you will have a different insight to this, but what can we do when we've been a victim of a cyber crime? What can we do?
What can we do when we've been a victim? Change.
Yeah, okay.
That's the first thing. Accept that what we did previously just doesn't work. Yeah. Inform, teach, inform our staff, teach our staff, take up serious training to our staff. Yeah. Tell our people to slow down.
Yeah. And should we were talking about as well, I think there's almost an unsaid rule often in small business or in business generally that people don't talk about it when it happens to them. What's your experience of that? Are people generally not wanting to confess it or talk it?
Yeah, genuine embarrassment. They're embarrassed that they were conned, and that's how they feel. They were conned. They're embarrassed. I'm smarter than that. I can't believe it happened to me. Yeah. And you know, we say they're con artists for a reason, because con's short for confidence. They gain your confidence by the way a website looks, by the way an email looks, all that sort of stuff. By how they talk to you, on a chat in person, on things like this. You know, you could be somewhere here, could be a cyber criminal gathering information on all of us here. You know, we don't know, and I think it's just slowing down and taking everything on board and saying, I need to learn and I need to make sure I put things in processes in place.
Okay, Alana, you know, given some of the work that you've done and the research you've done, and the dark web and so on, if we are a genuine victim of a significant cyber crime, is there anything at law we can do?
Pray? Honestly, I've been trying to get the law has changed in so many ways over the last 15 years, and it's like beating my head against the wall. We're starting to see some progress in the last 3 years, but I'm going to be really frank. Police are set up to deal with crimes in their jurisdiction.
Yes.
And cybercrime, the only example I've heard of in the last 2 years is literally the one that we've just had here about the dumpster diving to do the fraud.
Yeah.
It's like most of the things we investigate involve 37 countries by the time you've traced everything. Like it's completely out of control. So even if all of the laws are in place, the reality of being able to deal with what's there is abysmal at present. We're making some progress, but that progress isn't, it's the result of really complex investigations that go over a long period of time. And believe it or not, arrests are not the end game here. Economic disruption to their model is the end game. And that's where all of you come in handy. If you take 1 or 2 steps, you may think it's a small thing, but everybody who takes those steps contributes to disrupting the economic model of organized crime.
They're seeing themselves as a legitimate business with a legitimate business model because they can operate in that way. So in one of our previous panels, one of our colleagues spoke in regard to ransomware. I'm just wondering if anyone can share some insights. What happens with regard to ransomware? What can we do with regards to taking on cybersecurity or cyber insurance? And what are the interactions when people end up having to probably consider paying a ransomware? Have any of you got some insights or experiences there, Hector?
Yeah, absolutely. So our motto is do not deal with terrorists. We don't negotiate. You are rewarding bad behaviour. And we understand maybe all your data got taken and you go, well, but if I don't pay, I don't get it and I didn't have a backup. And it can get very tricky situation. And this is why it's important now that you're hearing about it. This is when you need to take the steps. This is when you need to make sure you have your backups, you have your, your rule of 3, have your 3 copies of your backups in 3 different places. What we have been seeing lately is ransomware has moved from a model where I'm going to hold your data for ransom and if you pay me, I'll give it back to you, to if you don't pay me, right, I'm going to leak these out. So before was, oh, well, I'm not going to pay you because I got a backup. So I'll give you the finger. It's like, oh, are you? Okay, if you don't pay me, I'm leaking this stuff out.
Yes.
Yep.
Right? So at that moment, well, how much do you really care? And it's like Alana says, well, it is called organised for a reason. And, the same way we are here having a panel about cybersecurity, I'm sure they're having panels about, cyber hacks. And they're having their own conferences with their own catering and their own champagne and, and their own expert panel, right? I'm not wrong, am I?
You're not wrong.
That's what happens. And they're doing the same thing we're doing, just in the other side of the coin, right?
Yeah. So, Alana, what's your sense of that?
Ransomware is a tricky one. Rule of thumb, never deal with it yourself. I can't express that enough. Exclamation point. Things will really go wrong if you deal with it yourself. One of the main reasons to have cyber insurance is that cyber insurance works different than other kinds of insurance. Most cyber insurance companies, they have what's known as a security operations center, right? Or a cyber incident response center built right into the insurance company. And so they'll actually handle your business email compromise and the ransomware for you. You're actually paying insurance to have them handle those things when it happens. And so that's a very different model. And if you're going to try and do this on your own or hire a company who's only ever done one, bad idea, okay? Because these people deal with thousands of them. And so they know what works and what doesn't. And the reality is that, yes, the advice is never to pay a ransom, but that is not the reality of many businesses who have to pay the ransom. There's just, you're a medical clinic and you get hit with insufficient backups and they're going to leak sensitive medical data. Not a chance. You're paying it. You have to pay it. And so as a result, a lot of medical facilities are actually high targets, right? Same with schools. They're never going to leak personal information about children. So it really depends on your business. And what sort of risks and whatnot that you're willing to accept. The other thing is there are certain types of ransomware. So typically what happens if you get hit with a ransom is someone will negotiate on your behalf, and you call a help center. It's a negotiation center, and someone will answer on the other end. Hi, you've reached the BitLocker ransomware negotiation center. This is Carl. I'll be your agent tonight. Like it's literally as professional as calling in, and then sometimes you can negotiate that price down for the ransom. But what we tend to find happen is usually before you're hit with a ransomware, they've been in your systems for a long time. They know everything about you. And so if you say, nah, we don't have $50,000, they've already accessed your accounts. They know exactly what you have. And so, so occasionally you can negotiate down, but the reality is that often you can't.
Okay, so the rule of thumb is if you are genuinely under an attack of ransomware, activate your cyber security insurance, activate the professionals.
Yeah, and if you don't know where to start, again, the government's given me money for you to call in, and I will help you. I will direct you. MyCase.org, MyCace.org. We're training the next generation of students, but our manager and our industry support are people like on the panel. We've got 20 different companies that provide mentors to the student, and our managing director has 15 years experience working as chief security architect for PwC, and prior to that, he was defending systems for the government.
Yeah.
So you're going to get the next steps that you need, and just take a break, pick up the phone, nothing to be embarrassed about, because you might not even be thinking straight, do I have cyber insurance, right? Like, you don't think straight when something has happened to you like that. So sometimes just picking up the phone for someone to tell you this is your next step is all you need.
We're going to share that link and other links that we've spoken about today on the notes for this broadcast. Leo, any insights to ransomware that you think would be of use? Or?
Pretty much what the guy said.
Yeah.
Firstly, get cyber insurance.
Yeah.
And nowadays, that will also help you become a little bit more cyber aware, because there's a questionnaire of 4 or 5 pages now that you have to answer.
Exactly.
And that's becoming a large part of my business now, sitting with companies, our small businesses, and going through this, saying, do you have this? Well, you don't, but I talked about that. Everyone has access, administrator access to their computers. Well, we talked about not having that, and now the insurance company is saying you shouldn't have it. So that starts that conversation. You get your cyber insurance, and like Alana said, let the insurance company deal with it, because they will play a numbers game as well. I know out of the US, I saw recently on a podcast or something where they had an insurance person there, and they said they've paid out something like 70% of cyber insurance, paid out 70% of in crypto.
So listen, the other thing I want to come back to that in a different way, but I want to just revisit some of the steps that you spoke to, Hector, and about having backups and a concept of having an air gap. Can you explain that concept to folks?
Yeah, so the concept would be, so we define it as the rule of 3. You would have your copy in the systems you're using, then you'd have your other backup, and you would have a backup in the cloud. And sometimes your secondary backup is always connected, so that could also be target of ransomware. So that's your typically external hard drive you got plugged into your computer. Your computer does the backup and backs up to that drive, and you think, well, that's okay, that's being backed up. Wrong. If the ransomware comes in, it will encrypt all your data in the computer. It will go and sniff out, oh, here's a hard drive, I'll encrypt that too. And that is the problem. So the air gap, what it does is you would have 2 drives that you swap at a rotation of that you need to figure out. So for some of our clients, the rotation is as frequent as 2 hours. Some of them are 4 hours, some are a day, some are a week. So the first thing is find out how long can you live without your data and how back can you go and restore. And then your secondary drive is never connected. So if you get hit, at least your other data will be your oldest copy. And at least you can get up your knees and do something, because once all your data has been locked, you can't operate. That all your templates are gone, all your forms are gone, your little document that said password, gone. So now you can't access all the other stuff because you don't have the password, you know.
Yeah.
And it's funny, but that's the reality. So let's treat it as it is. You have a little document that says password, and you store your stuff in there, and if that gets encrypted, now you can't access all the other stuff because that's all gone.
Yeah.
But if you have your air gap backup, you know, if you don't have a cloud backup, then you can come from there.
Well, that brings me to passwords. Alana, it might come back to you, but at a basic level, what can we do about passwords? I saw something the other day about
Perfect question.
passwords, how simple we all are.
Perfect
What can
question.
we do?
Have MFA, so if you're relying on a password, bad. So I was driving here, and this Optus radio ad comes up.
Yep.
Honey, what's your password? It's beta. Is that B with a capital B? And I'm like, okay, I understand why they're using that in the ad because the whole punchline was Optus is better. But this is a major company that has just advocated to all of Australia that a crappy password is acceptable for cybersecurity.
Yeah.
I literally thought, who is the person who approved this ad? That's so bad. So it's MFA is like, you know, when you get that text and you have to input the code, you think, oh, that's one more step, it's annoying. Think of it this way. If your child comes to you and says to you, Mom, Dad, guess a number between 1 and 10. That's a game you might be able to play with them, right? If they come up to you and they say, Mom, Dad, guess a number between 1 and 100, you're going to be like, oh no, I'm not doing that game. Mom, Dad, guess a number between 1 and 1,000. Oh no, I'm not doing that. When you have MFA, that person needs to guess a number between 1 and a billion. And even an algorithm has extreme difficulty doing that. And so you need to penetrate 2 areas of security.
Yeah.
So MFA is literally, it's 101. It's the equivalent of locking your doors just like backups. So at this point, ASD 8, and they're called the Essential 8 for a reason. There's hundreds of security controls, but there are 8 that are so essential as to be the equivalent of the things you would do to secure your business physically. So ASD 8.
And not only that, the MFA also not only is a billion combinations, but you actually got seconds to guess it. Otherwise, it changes.
Yes.
So it's an added layer into the authentication. Yeah.
So commonplace now, MFA can be applied across common day apps that we're all familiar with.
Yeah, social media, that's the other thing. You don't want your account to get hacked. There's literally, if you go into settings, you can turn on 2-factor authentication, and guess what? You're good to go. Yeah.
Well, we also push people to use the apps, like the Google Authenticator or the Microsoft Authenticator.
Yes.
Because that story I said earlier about the person who was dumpster hacked, everything was on, and banks have got a lot to answer for here, is by text message. That's why they took his phone number, and they were able to authenticate via the text message. If it was an app, they can't have it, they can't do it. You've got to actually open his phone. Let's say steal his phone and know his password to log into his phone, but that's a lot harder as well. We just really, really push everything multi-factor that you can that uses an app, use the app.
And I think it's important to highlight some systems out there have more than one multi-factor authentication. So I use systems that to log in, I have to put in my password, and then it will ask me to complete a puzzle so it knows I'm not a robot. And after I've done that, then it goes, okay, I've just emailed you a code, I SMS'd you a code, and you need to put your authenticator code. And you've got about 20 seconds to just get me all the code. So then I have to go to my email, punch that code, SMS that, and they all have to line up. So that's, yeah, I know, there's more doors and more things, but you know what, I feel like it's safe, and why not? It's already there, so use it.
Yep. We're getting towards the close of our discussion. As we do that, I'm more than happy for you folk to add anything that you don't think we've covered. That's the first thing. But as a premise to that, before you do that, or if you want to do that, I want to ask you, what would be for you your biggest threat or biggest risk that you see with regards to cyber security from your perspective? What you see is the biggest threat or the biggest risk to everyone?
Yeah, so what we see is what it's called social engineering. And these are attacks that are as the word says, social engineered. So this is when someone picks up the phone and calls you and speaks to your receptionist, and is imposting one of your suppliers or one of your clients, and it's just to gather more information. And that information could be anything. Could be the information about, someone could call the accountant of that sole trader that got dumpster dive, because they go and see it, oh, this is the accountant, let's just call there and see if we can get more information. So, just be aware of who's calling, why they're calling, and just have some simple things in place. Everyone receives a call, I receive a call, so when I get the call and say, hey, Hector, this is the bank, we want to talk to you. And I said, all right, I'll call you back. I can't talk right now. Yeah, but this is important now. Yeah, well, it can wait. Okay, let me give you the number. No, it's okay. I've got the number. See you later. Boom. Yeah. So, first of all, if the bank really wants to talk to me about an important matter, they'll probably send me a letter with a letterhead. They'll probably do any other types of communication. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I got the phone number of the bank. I will call, and I'm sure there'll be a matter somewhere, if this is real. But it's just being aware of those attacks, because you're in the middle of stuff, you're working, or the kids are like, hey, I'm hungry, and then the phone rings like, yeah, what? ATL? Yeah, okay, here's my password. Like, ooh, no. Yeah. You know what I mean? So just slow down, because that's what we see as the most concerning type of attacks.
Alana, for you, what would be the biggest threat?
People, because they're too nice. If something's fishy, just hang up. Literally hang up the phone.
Yes.
And it's back to some, it's back to some people skills now. So with business email compromise, there is software you can invest in that will significantly reduce the chance of you being phished or ever becoming a victim of a fraudulent payment made to someone else. But simple things like accounting controls, right? I think we've lost track of how to do that. So if you're a business that can have a whitelist of the account numbers that you normally have, maybe even stored on paper, to be perfectly honest with you, matched against the person that you deal with that company, and it's known as a whitelist with their number. Before you make any payment, you literally pick up the phone and you confirm the invoice, you confirm the bank accounts. And I know that sounds trivial and really time consuming, but it literally will prevent the BEC. And some of the world's largest organizations have those controls in place, the whitelisting phone calls.
Yeah, indeed.
It works.
Thank you. Leo, your biggest risk or threat from your perspective?
Pretty much the same. People are your weakest link.
Yeah.
And through social engineering, etc. I think processes is really important in businesses, which a small business says, I'm too small to have a process. Yes. Which is complete and utter rubbish, because if you have a process and you follow that process strictly, you won't get done. Yeah. It's quite obvious. And we know that companies that have had fake invoices sent out and paid a fake invoice bill. Yeah. I know a company that had a process, but because it was Christmas, under pressure, a manager and a sales manager rushing the accounts lady, she picked up that it was a different account number, but they said, they must have changed the account number, pay it anyway. So a small business with 10 employees losing $45,000, it's a lot of money. So if she'd stuck to her process, and if the manager and owner of the company stuck to the process, they wouldn't have lost anything. They would have made that phone call.
And I just want to highlight, right, that this is all good. So three of us agree it's people, but don't forget the systems are still there. And this is where the cyber essential aid come in place. Yes. So this is a government framework that will take you through the 8 different levels that we identified. Yeah. One of them is people, but also one of them is systems. So don't think because you've put processes and now you told your receptionist, hey, hang up the phone if it sounds fishy. But we won't upgrade that computer that's been there for 10 years. No, you still have to do that. Yes. Right? So you have to do it all. You have to upgrade the computer, you have to upgrade the software, you got to get your proper antivirus, you got to get your proper IT support, you got to get your cyber insurance, you got to change your password, activate your 2MFA, and train your receptionist. Yes. And that is the essential 8. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's what it is. So you have to proof it.
Alana?
Yeah, 5 years ago, a lot of banks had a cyber security fraud budget of about 200 million. Most banks now have their budget exceeds 1 billion. So let's just do the same math, you know. If your budget was 200 before, it should be increasing tenfold. So whatever you've done in the past should be increased tenfold for cybersecurity. And it might be slightly more because it doesn't scale. But the reality is that you have to do all the things. Otherwise, look, I'd be happy if you took a couple steps. But literally just like, oh, I took one step today, great. And then, you know, in a couple weeks' time, I'll do that next one. And then just keep going and constantly upgrade.
And we know it's not easy. Like if you're a small business, right, we get it. You have 3-4 employees and now you're saying, whoa, what Hector, now we have to upgrade 4 computers. How much that cost me? $6,000. Where do I get that from? And then the other thing and the other thing, I get it, right? But if at least you start the thought process and go, okay, I don't have the cash flow to do it right now, but I'm going to speak to Leo and let's put here, hey Leo, I want to do this. Can you help me through the year? You know, how do we go? Can you supply this thing? And Leo might go, yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll put you on a payment plan and let's get you this. So there are, you know, options, and just at least have it in your thought, have it in your budget. And at least you know it's going to happen. But don't just go, oh yeah, I'm not going to be able to afford that, so just forget about it. Don't forget.
I think what you said, Leo, when you spoke about helping people apply for cybersecurity insurance, you're right. We almost are forced to do a little audit, aren't we? And then from that, as you say, next follows, we'll write up a process, write up a policy.
Well, one thing I was going to add to this was, as a business or a small business or a medium business, have that conversation with your IT people. Bring them in, bring your IT company in as a partner, as someone that sits on your board. You know, and then they can learn about your business and can give you much better advice. But you need to bring them in and ask for that to happen. I want to be more cyber secure. Bring them in, because otherwise your IT guy, I say to a lot of people, you know who we are? We're the people people call when they're in trouble. Because they're always ringing us when they're not happy because something went wrong. You know what? If you call us first and talk to us first, things may not happen like that. You will be more secure.
Yeah, this is the same if you live in a bushfire area. You would have a fire evacuation plan. You have thought about it and you have it and you draft it and you spoke to your family about it. Same if you live in a flood zone, right? You would have a flood plan and how to evacuate and what happens, right? So this would be no different. You have technology, you should have your process drafted, and you need your expert. So in our case, we're just putting a cybersecurity audit package for us to, you know, people to be able to go through the steps, you know, and get a full vulnerability report that will tell you exactly what's going on with it and what the gaps are.
All right, I'm going to let Alana have the closing comment before I finish off the event tonight. But with 67,500 cybercrime reports reported in the 2021 financial year, this isn't going anywhere, is it, Alana?
The only way is up. For now, until people really start to take it seriously. There's so much change that needs to happen. I do think we'll get there, eventually by necessity. But you know, it's everybody's business. No one's exempt. I mean, even people are personally taking cyber insurance now. The one thing I can say is that they've talked about process and audits and plans, and that can be seriously overwhelming, especially if you're a micro business. So we examined 67 different cyber incident response plans templates globally, and amalgamated it into an ideal cyber incident response plan for a micro business or small business with New South Wales law that's applicable, as well as Australian law. And we've had it designed for usability, so it's super simple. Even if you only fill out the first page in it, you will have made headway, okay? And it's designed not to be overwhelming for you, and you can download it from the website, and it'll at least start you on that next journey, okay? And you're thinking about the things that come next. And you know, as you grow a little bit more confident, you reach out to people like Hector and Leo, you engage services, and you go from there.
Thank you. I'd like to thank our guests for this panel session. We will, if you would like to approach them or be part of some of their services, or indeed Alana's programs, then please please reach out to us and we'll forward on their contact details. This, as I said at the beginning, is a presentation that's been brought by the New South Wales Government's Business Connect program. If you'd like to register for the program, please call 1300 134 359 and we'd like to close. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.